Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha with the news, your daily roundup of all that's happened across India and the world. From the parliamentary proceedings to government formations in states and also the latest updates from Russia-Ukraine conflict. All that and much more over the next 30 minutes. First, the headlines. Lok Sabha passes demand for grants for Ministry of Railways. Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav asserts there is no question of privatising railways. Rajya Sabha discusses functioning of the Tribal Affairs Ministry. Bhagwan Maan takes oath as Punjab Chief Minister. Many leaders, including Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, attend the ceremony. COVID vaccination of children in the age group of 12 to 14 years begins across the country. Amid falling cases of COVID-19, central government restores valid e-tourist visa facility for 156 countries after a period of 2 years. And Ukraine's President Zelensky addresses US Congress, requests help for his country. Meanwhile, amid the conflict, 2 Fox News journalists killed in Russian bombing. A quick look at what else made news through the day today. Supreme Court upholds government's decision on one rank, one pension for defence forces. Prime Minister expresses warm appreciation to all stakeholders of Operation Ganga for successful Ukraine evacuation. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu condoles passing away of child care expert Meena Swaminathan. 3 terrorists gunned down by security forces in Nogam area in the outskirts of Srinagar. Telangana Legislative Assembly adjourned sine die. Supreme Court to hear petition challenging Karnataka High Court order on wearing hijab in classrooms after Holi. Union Ministers Nitin Gadkari and Hardeep Singh Puri inaugurate the hydrogen-based advanced fuel cell electric vehicle pilot project in New Delhi. CPM member nominates 40-year-old A.M. Rahim as its youngest leader for Rajya Sabha. Chennai to host 44th Chess Olympiad this year after Russia is stripped of the opportunity due to Ukraine invasion. Indian fast bowler Jhulan Goswami becomes the first woman bowler to take 250 wickets in ODI cricket. Let's now get your news from Parliament. Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav on Wednesday replied to the discussion on demands for grants for the Railway Ministry for the year 2022-23 in the Lok Sabha. He rebutted the opposition's criticism of the functioning of his ministry. He said the Indian Railways was reeling under policy paralysis during the UPA regime, but was put back on track after Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power. In fact, he also listed initiatives taken by the Modi government, underscoring that capital investment had increased to over 95,000 crore rupees in 2019 from just 45,980 crores in 2014.
ये एकदम प्योर हाइपोथेटिकल पॉइंट है सदस्यों की तरफ से जिन्होंने उठाया है। मैं निवेदन करूंगा अध्यक्ष जी, ट्रैक किसका है? ट्रैक भारतीय रेलवे का है। पटरी किसकी है? रेलवे की है। स्टेशन किसका है? रेलवे का है। ऊपर के जो बिजली के तार है वो किसके हैं? रेलवे के हैं। इंजन किसका है? रेलवे का है। ट्रेन की जो कोचेज है वो किसकी है? रेलवे की है। सिग्नलिंग सिस्टम किसका है? रेलवे का है। कहाँ प्राइवेटाइजेशन की बात है अध्यक्ष जी? कहीं कोई प्राइवेटाइजेशन की बात नहीं। मेरे पूर्ववर्ती माननीय मंत्री श्री पीयूष जी गोयल ने सदन के फ्लोर पे क्लियरली कहा था कि रेलवे एक ऐसा कॉम्प्लेक्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, इसमें कहीं पर भी प्राइवेटाइजेशन की कोई बात ही नहीं है।
Earlier, the discussion saw members of the Congress and some other parties charging the government with taking steps towards privatizing the railways and focusing only on making profits.
It is an eloquent testimony that railway itself is recognized as a crucial infrastructure which integrates the nation, which increases the trade, and naturally it may be conveniently regarded as an institution of nation building.
In the Rajya Sabha, Tribal Affairs Minister Arjun Munda replied to the discussion on the working of the Tribal Affairs Ministry. Munda asserted that the government is committed to the overall development of the tribal society while preserving its culture, civilization and identity.
हम क्षेत्र में जाके काम करते हैं, हम वहां पहुंच करके देखते हैं कि वास्तविक रूप से जिनके लिए कार्य योजना बना है उनके लिए वो उपयोगी सिद्ध हो रहा है या नहीं। ऊपरी तौर से बात करना और योजना बना करके सिर्फ आप आंकड़ों की खेती करते हैं, लंबे कालखंड तक यही बताने में लगे रहे कि हमने इतना दिया, इतना लिया, इतना किया, कितना पहुंचा इसका तो हिसाब आपने दिया ही नहीं। और यदि आपने कभी कहा भी, स्वीकार भी किया कि 100 रुपया में 15 रुपया पहुंचता है, 85-50 पाइपलाइन में फंस जाता है। उनको समझने का काम करिए।
Taking part in the discussion, Law and Justice Minister Kiren Rijiju said the government has taken historic steps for tribal welfare in the last 8 years.
फ्रीडम फाइटर है, उसको ढूंढ के आज उसका नाम में हम लोग अलग अलग चीज किया जा रहा है और स्मारक भी बनाया जा रहा है। इसी प्रकार से बाकी देशों में जो जैसे अलग अलग देशों का अपना एक प्राउड होता है, अपना ट्राइबल, अपना कम्युनिटी, हर देश का होता है। हमारा भी अपना देश में किसी समुदाय को, किसी ग्रुप को, किसी ट्राइबल कम्युनिटी को अगर पीछे छोड़ेंगे तो देश जितना भी आगे बढ़े लेकिन एक वर्ग पीछे छूट जाएंगे तो किसी को भी अच्छा नहीं लगेगा।
Members of other parties also participated in the discussion. Several issues, including promotion of education, budgetary allocation, etc., for the ministry were raised.
You speak only for the tribals by your tongue, the heart of heart. You are not for them. You are not for them. Do you know the meaning of Jal, Jameen, Jungle? Do you know about it? You are denying them, they are Jal. You deny them, they are Jungle. You deny them, they are Jameen.
The Adivasi areas, the tribal areas are not educated, and therefore obviously they do not understand the importance of education. And even if we provide schools in the vicinity or we provide residential schools, we find that the parents are not keen on sending their children to school. Instead, they would send them for remunerative employment. And therefore, we will have to create massive awareness amongst the adult population in the tribal areas.
Moving on to some other national news. Caretaker Chief Ministers of Goa and Manipur called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi today. In his meeting with the Goa BJP leaders and also the Chief Minister Pramod Sawant, the Prime Minister thanked the people for renewing the party's mandate to serve the state. He advised the MLAs to work harder for the progress of Goa. The Prime Minister also congratulated Manipur Chief Minister N. Biren Singh on his victory in the assembly elections. He said the BJP will work harder to fulfill the aspirations of the people of the northeastern state. Meanwhile, Aam Aadmi Party leader Bhagwant Mann took oath as the Chief Minister of Punjab today. Congratulating him on the occasion, Prime Minister Modi assured that the centre will work closely with his government for the development of the state. Governor Banwari Lal Purohit administered the oath of office in secrecy to Bhagwant Mann in Khatkar Kalan, the native village of freedom fighter Bhagat Singh. Mann took the oath in Punjabi.
मैं भगवंत मान ईश्वर दी सौं चुकदा हां कि मैं कानून द्वारा स्थापित भारत दे संविधान दे प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा ते निष्ठा रखांगा.
Apart from the newly elected MLAs of the Aam Aadmi Party, Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia and several other senior leaders attended the swearing-in ceremony. The Aam Aadmi Party has 92 out of the 117 seats in the Punjab Assembly.
ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਰਗਿਆਂ ਐਂ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ ਔਰ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਬੇਰੁਜ਼ਗਾਰੀ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਖੇਤੀ ਵਪਾਰ ਕਰਪਸ਼ਨ ਸਕੂਲ, ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਤਾਣੀ ਉਲਝੀ ਪਈ ਹੈ। ਰੇਹ ਦੀ ਬੋਰੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ, ਜੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਉੱਠੇ ਪਾਸਿਓਂ ਖੋਲਣ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਓ ਤਾਂ ਅੱਧਾ ਦਿਨ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਜੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਸਿਰਾ ਲੱਭ ਜੇ ਇੱਧਰਲੇ ਪਾਸਿਓਂ, ਉਹ ਅੱਧੇ ਸਕਿੰਟ 'ਚ ਖੁੱਲ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਆਪਾਂ ਇਸ ਉਲਝੀ ਹੋਈ ਤਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਸਿਰਾ ਲੱਭਾਂਗੇ, ਸਹੀ ਵਾਲਾ ਸਿਰਾ।
On National Immunization Day today, COVID vaccination for the 12 to 14-year age group began. An estimated 47 million children are eligible for 2 doses of biological ease Corbevax vaccine over 28 days. Vaccine doses can be booked through the CoWIN portal. Prime Minister Modi urged the eligible children to take their vaccine doses and also those above 60 years to take their precautionary booster doses. In a series of Twitter messages, the Prime Minister said India is now in a much better position in the fight against COVID-19, but people will still have to follow all the preventive measures. He said India's vaccination campaign is the largest in the world. Over 180 crore doses of the vaccine have been administered so far. Besides 20 million booster doses, 9 crore have been given to adolescents in the age group of 15 to 17 years. Moving on, India has restored all currently valid 5-year e-tourist visas given to citizens of 156 countries and regular paper visa to nationals of all countries with immediate effect. The visas had been suspended since March 2020 following the COVID outbreak. All currently valid old 10-year duration regular tourist visas given to nationals of the US and Japan have also been restored. Fresh 10-year duration tourist visas will also be issued to the US and Japanese nationals. The government has decided that currently valid e-tourist visa issued for 5 years have been restored. News now from across different states of the country. Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar spoke on issues related to farmers in the State Assembly today. He appealed to farmers who are not getting the benefit of the PM Fasal Bima Yojana to get themselves registered. He asserted that development works are progressing at a fast pace in his state. Meanwhile, the Assembly of Kerala unanimously passed a resolution expressing concern over the centre's decision to sell its stake in LIC. Introducing the resolution, Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan said the move to privatize LIC is not in the best interest of the country. The budget session of the Odisha Assembly will begin from the 25th of March. It will have 5 hours of business each day. The session will be held in 2 parts. The first part will conclude on the 31st of March. Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy distributed 708 crore rupees to 10,82,000 students under the government's flagship scheme, Jagan Anna Vidya Divan. The government introduced full fee reimbursement to make education accessible to the poor and the underprivileged. Congress leader Navjot Singh Sidhu resigned as state party president of the Punjab unit. Following the disastrous showing by the Congress in the recently held assembly elections, party president Sonia Gandhi asked all the 5 state party presidents to resign. Many parts of the country are experiencing scorching heat. Temperatures crossed 41 degrees in at least 5 cities of Gujarat. The Met Department has warned of a heat wave in many states. It has predicted that summer could be severe this year. The city of Lord Krishna, Vrindavan, is drenched in the colors of Holi. At the Gopinath temple, a large number of widows once again celebrated Holi after 2 years of the COVID pandemic. The celebration has become a tradition in recent years, breaking the age-old taboo of widows taking part in the festival. And with that, time for a short break here. But on the other side, Sri Lanka reeling under severe economic crisis. Details on the story when we return. Do stay with us.
हमें होली को फगुआ दिलाओ पिया ना सताओ पिया मेरे दिल में उठी है हिलोर होली, पिया दिल में मची है हिलोर होली।
ऋतु बासंती होली आई, छाई मस्त बहार है, बैर भूल कर गले मिले सब, प्रेम का ये त्योहार है।
ओ रसिया खेलन आयो, फाग फाग के रंग निराले हैं। ओ रसिया खेलन आयो, फाग फाग के रंग निराले हैं।
Welcome back. Let's now get you news from the world of business and economy. After Tuesday's poor showing, it was a day of bumper rise for the Asian markets. With Ukraine-Russia peace talks seemingly going in the right direction and the Chinese government's pledge to help stabilize markets amid the settling down of oil prices, the markets tried to regain their lost ground. The biggest jump was seen at Hang Seng. Hong Kong's benchmark index gained more than 9% or 1,672 points. It's best day since the 2008 global financial crisis. Shanghai Composite also rose 3.5%. Singapore's Straits Times was up 1.7% and Japan's Nikkei ended the trade with 1.64% gain. Taking a cue from their Asian counterparts, Indian stock markets were also bullish throughout the day on Wednesday. The Bombay Stock Exchange benchmark index Sensex opened with smart gains and closed almost at the highest level of the day. In all, it gained 1,040 points and ended the trade at 56,817. As far as the National Stock Exchange was concerned, the Nifty 50 was up 312 points. At the end of the session, the index was at 16,975 levels, a gain of 1.87%. Sri Lankan Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa met Prime Minister Modi in Delhi on Wednesday. Calling Sri Lanka a close and friendly neighbour, the Prime Minister told Rajapaksa that India will always stand by with its neighbour. The Sri Lankan Foreign Minister is on a two-day visit to India amid his country's worst economic crisis. Sri Lanka is seeking a $1 billion line of credit from New Delhi. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's capital, Colombo, is witnessing protests even as the country's economic woes multiplied over the Ukraine invasion. Here's a report.
Sri Lanka's already dire economic crisis has deepened over rising oil prices. With vehicles stranded on empty tanks, the country has had to resort to power cuts to conserve energy. It has already restricted imports of cars and fertilizer. Higher oil prices are just an extra burden in what really is a foreign exchange crisis. Sri Lanka is struggling to pay back foreign loans for infrastructure projects that are not making money. A $1 billion repayment is due in July on foreign debt obligations of $7 billion this year. Over the last decade, China has lent Sri Lanka over $5 billion for highways, ports, an airport and a coal power plant. With dollar reserves running short, banks are unwilling to open lines of credit for imports, even of essentials like milk powder, medicine and fuel. Since November, Moody's, Fitch and Standard & Poor's rating agencies have all downgraded Sri Lanka on debt default worries. Central Bank Governor Ajit Nivard Cabral has said the country will meet all its debt repayments in 2022. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And moving on now to the latest from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the US Congress on Wednesday. Citing Pearl Harbor and the 9/11 terror attacks, he appealed to America to do more to help Ukraine's fight against Russia. He, however, acknowledged that the no-fly zone that he has sought to close the sky over his country may not happen. On the ground in Ukraine, despite the unabated bombings, there emerged a glimmer of hope towards a resolution. Here's the latest report.
An emotional moment of solidarity. Ukraine President Zelensky thanked prime ministers of his neighbor countries, Poland, Slovenia and Czech Republic, who came all the way down to Kiev in the midst of a raging war.
We will never leave you alone. We will be with you because we know that you are fighting not only for your homes, for your freedom, for your security, but also for ours.
There's a new understanding developing in the region. The bone of contention, Ukraine's bid to join NATO, is not there anymore, a fact underscored by Zelensky himself in his address to the British Parliament.
Зрозуміло, що Україна не є членом НАТО, ми це розуміємо, ми адекватні люди. Роками ми чули про нібито відкриті двері, але вже почули також, що нам туди не увійти, і це правда, і треба це визнавати. Я радий, що наш народ починає це розуміти і розраховувати на себе і на наших партнерів, які нам допомагають.
The European Union imposed its strongest package of sanctions against Russia. American President Joe Biden signed a bill clearing $13.6 billion military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Meanwhile, the skyline of Ukraine's city continued to be darkened by smoke. The grounds are accumulating piles of mounting debris. With sounds of bombs and helpless screams breaking the silence, for most Ukrainians, it's time to say adieu to loved ones or their loving neighborhood. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Some other updates from around the world. The US Federal Open Market Committee will be holding a two-day meeting starting tonight. Central bankers, investors and markets will be keeping a close watch for developments that are expected to impact the current climate of low rates and surplus liquidity that has characterized the last 2 years of the COVID pandemic. The meeting is expected to determine the magnitude of the first rate hike by the Fed in 3 years as America battles multi-decadal high inflation. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said her nation is ready to welcome the world back, with most tourists allowed to return by May as the nation continues to ease its coronavirus restrictions. Earlier, the government said the tourists from countries including the US, Canada, Britain and much of Europe can visit in October. International tourism accounted for about 20% of New Zealand's foreign income and more than 5% of GDP before the pandemic began. Drug maker Pfizer is expected to request authorization this week for an additional COVID-19 booster dose for over 65 population. This would add a fourth dose to the regimen, which currently consists of a primary series of 2 shots, followed months later by a booster dose for them. Senior citizens in the US have been hit hardest by the pandemic. The Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control needs to approve the request. China's business city of Shenzhen on Wednesday entered its 4th day of lockdown in the wake of the fresh COVID outbreak in the country. 92 positive cases were detected on Tuesday, including 37 showing no symptoms. Everyone in Shenzhen is undergoing 3 rounds of testing. Residents in areas without confirmed cases can leave or enter with a negative test result within 24 hours. And each household can have 1 family member to go out shopping or also get deliveries every 2 days. Hot air from the Sahara Desert coated Spain with red-orange dust, prompting authorities to issue extremely bad air quality warnings on Tuesday for Madrid and a large part of the country. Many Spaniards awoke to find a layer of red dust covering terraces, streets and cars. The National Air Quality Index listed the capital and large parts of the southeast coast its worst rating as extremely unfavorable. Spain's weather service described the dust storm from the Sahara as extraordinary and very intense. And time now for all the action from the world of sports. Poor batting performance resulted in a second defeat for India in the Women's World Cup. In the match played at Bay Oval, New Zealand, India could only post 134 and were all out in 36.2 overs to give defending champions England an easy target to register their first win in the tournament. England surpassed India's score in the 32nd over with 6 wickets down, winning by 4 wickets. Charlie Dean starred for England with the ball with figures of 4 wickets for 23 runs. She was well supported by Anya Shrubsole, who took 2 wickets for 20. England wobbled at the start of their chase. However, a third-wicket partnership of 65 between captain Heather Knight and Nat Shiva put paid to Indian hopes. Shiva was out for 45. Knight, however, guided her team through a second wobble towards the end, remaining not out on 53. Veteran Indian pacer Jhulan Goswami today became the first bowler in history to complete 250 wickets in women's ODIs. Jhulan, playing in her 199th ODI match, dismissed England's Tammy Beaumont to achieve the feat. She also became the first bowler to take 350 wickets across 3 formats of the game. The second test between Pakistan and Australia ended in a draw. Chasing an improbable target of 506 to win, Pakistan were 443 for 7 when stumps were drawn on the final day. A 228 runs third-wicket partnership between captain Babar Azam and Abdullah Shafiq kept Pakistan's fans interested, but scoring 314 runs on a last-day pitch would have required a more aggressive approach. Azam was out for 196 and Mohammad Rizwan made 104 not out in the last innings of the match. Moving to football now, Atletico Madrid drove the final nail in the coffin of a miserable season for Manchester United. Renan Lodi scored the only goal for Diego Simeone's side at Old Trafford to hand Atletico a 2-1 aggregate victory. United have not won a trophy since Jose Mourinho guided them to the Europa League in 2016-17. United have now been knocked out in 6 of their past 8 Champions League knockout stage ties. In tennis, 7th seed Andrei Rublev of Russia overcame home favourite Francis Tiafoe 6-3, 6-4 to secure a place in the 4th round at the Indian Wells Masters. 24-year-old Rublev crushed 21 winners in the 70-minute match to extend his winning streak to 11 after he took the titles in both Marseille and Dubai. And before we wind up the bulletin, a quick reminder of the top stories of the day. Lok Sabha passes demand for grants for Ministry of Railways. Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav asserts there is no question of privatising railways. Rajya Sabha, meanwhile, discusses functioning of the Tribal Affairs Ministry. Bhagwant Mann takes oath as Punjab Chief Minister. Many leaders, including Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, attend the ceremony. COVID vaccination of children in the age group of 12 to 14 years begins across the country. Amid falling cases of COVID-19, central government restores valid e-tourist visa facility for 156 countries after a gap of 2 years. And Ukrainian President Zelensky addresses US Congress, requests help for his country. Meanwhile, 2 Fox News journalists killed in Russian bombing. So that's it from us in this bulletin. Thank you for your time.